I wrote a book about him. It's called How Lance Does It. I was interacting with him a lot when we were triathletes back when he was a kid. And he just had the most ideal competitive mindset I've ever seen. If you can put out 500 watts on your Aerodyne bike, so can I, let's say, but I weigh this many pounds less than you, I'm going to toast you on a hill. And so that's the whole tour comes down to this mathematical equation that they can go and figure out in June when they're training. They're going to climb up a steep hill, they're going to prick their finger, and the coach is going to go, you're going to win, you're going to work for him because he's better than you. And it's pretty wild how, now how do you get to 7.3? Wattage per kilogram? You're doping your ass off and you're taking the red blood cell product EPO, because how can you train that hard to put out that many watts when you only weigh 140 pounds? So that's the other factor that comes into, you could probably even predict like this guy's doped if he's at 7.3 because 6.8 is the most any human could ever get to in terms of ability when they're not full of EPO and their hematocrit's not too high.
I don't pay much attention to cycling. I still don't pay any attention to cycling. But since Lance Armstrong, has there been anybody who has been able to, I don't know, match his skill?
Yeah, good question. Then? I mean, and also skill, what does that mean? And to me, when I look at Lance, like he was the most prepared and the most mentally optimal athlete I think that we've ever seen. And it was just amazing how he lived his life, how he organized the operation. U.S. Postal Bicycling Team had 40 employees. 20 of them were riders, 20 of them were therapist, coach, manager, whatever. And he was pretty much ruled that environment and orchestrated everything with his sidekick, Brunel, who was the team director. And so they'd pick the right athletes and they'd assess who was up and coming and get that guy on their team because they needed him to work for him in the mountains. Yeah. So it was like a business. And then he was training his body as an athlete. And he had, the highest level of confidence. But I wrote a book about him. It's called How Lance Does It. I interacted with him a lot when we were triathletes back when he was a kid. And he just had the most ideal competitive mindset I've ever seen. And it was just this complete confidence, cockiness like everyone accuses him of. But it was mainly like confidence in his own abilities and his ability to stay focused and work hard. And also like complete fearlessness of not only winning, but not fearing losing either. Yeah. Which is an important distinction, because I think a lot of athletes, they're afraid of winning and breaking through because then they don't have that struggle that they're so familiar with. And some of them have talked about this in public, and I think we see like the mental aspects where the mental health is now a big factor in sports, and I think it's all great to have this come out. But a lot of athletes are afraid of being the best. And then there's a ton of them that are afraid of losing and therefore playing conservatively. And in the fourth quarter, the Warriors were up by 18, but they start to get stiff and Curry's not flipping his shots anymore. Yeah. What's his name? Dr. Lohr, he's written a bunch of mental training books. He says Curry is the best ideal athlete mindset he's ever seen because he's constantly loosey-goosey, relaxed, having fun, sticking his tongue out, wagging his tongue, flipping a shot, because your shot, when you're 27 feet away, you can't have any tension or forcing the shot. He's flipping his shot up like he's playing on the playground. And that's how the best basketball player ever, I think in many ways, he's the best. But Lance was like that in cycling, to answer your question. So he had all those attributes that were beyond anything we've ever seen. Yeah. And because the sport was so dirty and so doped, he would win the tour by 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 7 minutes. But if it was clean, he would have won by 20 minutes or 30 minutes. I don't think enough people say that or appreciate that. It's like he was a victim of the genetically inferior athlete taking a shortcut to catch up to what he was naturally. Yeah. And of course, he was 6% better because everybody was doped. And so it closes the gap, just like in the locker room of the NFL or high school. Yeah. Go to Grant High, Powerhouse, or whatever. 3 of those guys look like you. They're 17, and they're going to D1. They're getting a full ride, and they're doing an NIL deal. The quarterback, Nicholas, Tennessee, is getting $7 million to throw balls. He's in 10th grade. He's going into 11th grade. The greatest NIL deal. Anyway, there's these genetic freaks that have the attributes, and then all the drugs can come into play to help them get higher, especially the red blood cell drug, because if you're oxygenating your blood that high, you're going to make a huge bump, and you're going to get as good as the best natural guy, I guess. Now, I haven't followed the sport that much. I just loved the Lance era and watching all that, and it was so great. And I kind of got disappointed when all this stuff blew up. But apparently, they're still climbing the key mountains like Alpe d'Huez. They have these signature climbs, the Tourmalet, that they go on most every year. It's a famous mountain pass. It's like going over the Sierras. Who can ride up Donner Pass in an hour or whatever. They're still climbing like in similar times to what Lance threw down in the era of rampant doping and drug use.
Damn.
And so I'm not gonna. I mean, I can speculate, I guess, on this show. We have no limits, right? It's like, okay, well, you're not going to beat Lance clean because Lance was doped and he was better than you because he's the most genetically, gifted endurance athlete we've ever seen. He was 15 years old. He was racing against me and the others on the pro triathlon circuit, 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
I guarantee you he wasn't doped at 15 or 16 years old. So he was an incredible endurance machine, the likes of which we've never seen. And then, of course, he got ushered into the doping era. But, I don't know what's going on these guys now. But in Tyler Hamilton's book, The Secret Race, he's talking about microdosing with EPO, where you just take a little pinch every night or something into the skin to help boost your red blood cells. And by morning, you will test clean because it's a small dose rather than a big dose where you're going to get busted. And he calls it like your radioactive period. You don't want to get tested by a surprise unannounced drug test visitor during that time. And so he has passages in the book where, he and his wife are making dinner in the kitchen, the doorbell rings, they hit the deck and freeze for 30 minutes and don't move and don't talk. And the doorbell rings again, and then the person writes down, failed attempt, I'll be back at 6 a.m. And if you miss that one, you're suspended. And so it was just funny. Like, and he'd finish his bike ride, and he'd always cut through like the neighbor's yard, lift his bike over the fence, sneak through his own backyard, into the basement, up the stairs, and then into the kitchen in case someone was at the door waiting for him. Whew. Yeah, it was a heavy read, put it that way.
That project family has to go. And now, as you guys know, we have been talking about cold therapy for a while. Mark, Andrew, and myself, we all use cold plunge XLs since we're pretty big. But the cold plunge is amazing. And there are a lot of cold therapy tools out there. Obviously, you can use your shower. But the amazing thing about the cold plunge is, number one, it doesn't take up much space in your home or your backyard. And number two, you don't need to change your water, unlike other cold therapy devices, for 6 months to a year. It filters itself. Let's not even talk about all the benefits of cold plunging, like the dopamine release, how good you feel after doing it, and just the cascade of hormones that happens after you get in some really cold water. It's crazy, and we love it. So, Andrew, how can they get it?
Absolutely. You guys got to head over to thecoldplunge.com, and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save $150 off your very own cold plunge. Again, thecoldplunge.com, links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes.
Can you tell us about Lance Armstrong's gardener? Do you know that story?
No.
Lance Armstrong's gardener went with him on the Tour de France tours, and he would stop at like a local bar or whatever. And Lance would meet him there, and he would blood dope him like right there on the spot, like give him whatever EPO or whatever drugs he had.
I think his nickname was Moto Man.
Moto Man.
I didn't know it was his gardener, but it was Moto Man.
Yeah, they called him Moto Man. Yeah, he would cruise around on a little moped. That's why they called him Moto Man. Man, he had all these like drugs for him or whatever. And then in that documentary that they did, they had like it was funny because they were really suspicious of the U.S. team, and they're like, we don't really know what's going on. We can't just go and accuse him. While they're talking outside of this mobile home unit that they had, that they were cruising around in, they're in there doping at that very moment. Like they're in there like getting like these blood transfusions or something like that.
They replaced their own blood that they took out
while
6 weeks
they're
before.
outside talking
Suspicious.
about how suspicious it is, but they can't they can't go in like just bust them on stuff.
How did they know that they were doing that at that moment in time, though? Like what?
It's in the documentary. I forget how it's shown or explained, or maybe they just said, hey, in retrospect, I think that it was happening, and maybe they just showed a clip of it or something like that.
What's it called? I want to watch it. Do you know the name of the doc?
Armstrong Lie.
The Armstrong Lie.
Yeah, there's so many, man. I'm losing count.
It's incredible.
It's all pretty,
It's incredible. The one thing where you kind of like, where his story just loses me is like, and I don't have any idea of his business or how any of it happened, but it appears that he like went out of his way to attack people. That were throwing shade at him, but like,
I mean, it was a business strategy. I think it was
He sued a guy for like $2 million.
yeah, he sued everybody that
Yeah.
spoke out, and there was some.
It's just like a
tear-
random writer who doesn't have that kind of dough.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And he won. Like Lance Armstrong won.
God.
Yeah, and there was people like tearful confessions, people coming forward saying, "I've seen it all. This is what happened.
Yeah.
I'm telling the truth to clear my own conscience." And then they would get their asses sued off by the machine, because once you're stuck in that lie, and he's done a pretty good job, these days, coming forward and saying, "Look, what am I
The
going to
greatest
do?"
natty or not story of all
Yeah,
time.
Honestly,
It's like,
that's- yeah.
you're stuck. It's like Madoff or something. You're not gonna go to the 2/3 mark and go, "Hey, sorry, I took all your guys' money. I'll make it up to you. Please, forgive me." It's just blown up, and it's gotten so big. And now he's a hero to the cancer survivors, so he's not going to let down the little bald children. And it just got really, it got really heavy. But I think the thing we have to appreciate when we point fingers and say that person's a cheater, this person isn't. It's like, look, this is major big time sports, and we now know that everyone was doped at the highest level of, especially cycling. And we can speculate all we want about the other things and Liver King and all the rest, but it doesn't. I think I'm going to say that the playing field is most likely level wherever we're looking. So is Usain Bolt, did he take dope when he was sprinting? Well, if he did, I guarantee you the other 7 guys in the finals did, and
That
so
makes
he's still
sense.
the fastest. And
I would agree with that.
the ones that are deliberately cheating when they know they're in a clean sport, that's rough. And that was my era of triathlon, 86 to 94, where, the doping was just kind of emanating into the endurance sports, and people realizing that even if you take anabolic steroids, even as a skinny geek going and riding your bike up the hill, it's going to have a huge advantage. And I had to make this assumption, like I had to go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning assuming that this sport was squeaky clean, and these are my buddies, and I crashed with Mark Allen and Kenny Souza in Colorado, 2 of the best guys, and I go train with Mike Pig in Arcata, another top guy, and use his bathroom and borrow his toothpaste, and it's like, I know this sport is clean and everyone's working hard and we're all trying our best. Otherwise, I'd have to quit.
I know these guys. They go to church with me on the weekend.
Yeah. I mean, it's like this. You raise hell and accuse everybody of doping, quit, or join them. Those are your 3 choices, and none of them are any good, right? Or 4th, get your ass kicked and go home and give a hug to your wife and say, I got 7th, but I was maybe the first clean person, so let's go celebrate with a pizza. None of those 4 are good.
But what about getting a PR?
Well, I mean, if it's your profession, like I gave
a faster person will help you get a PR, right?
I mean, here's
Does
the
that
thing.
not matter because you don't get first?
I mean, I gave up 9 years of my life dedicated to the pro circuit,
yeah.
so I wasn't interested in PRs or more.
Hey, how's it? Sorry, I'm not going to whisper. I know you guys are enjoying this content, and we love talking to all these people and bringing you guys great information. So if you could help us out by hitting the like button, because that helps the algorithm, subscribe and hit the notification bell, we're going to continue reaching more people, and we're going to continue helping more people. Talk to y'all later.